Hi, welcome to Drama Means. Today we're going to talk about the 2023 Chinese costume drama, Destined.
And today on the podcast, drama means unexpected relationships. Drama means best laid plans. Drama means pointlessly faking your own death. Now, before we jump in, we'll do a little bit of summary, the best we can, to kind of catch you up on what Destined was about if you haven't seen it. But as always, there's going to be lots of spoilers in this episode of the podcast. So if you don't want it to be spoiled for you, maybe go watch it first and then come on back and listen to what we thought. So the drama follows the character of Jiu Si, who is kind of the ne'er-do-well son of a rich business family. He kind of is a playboy, a gambler, like he's not someone that anyone expects any ambition to come from. And he ends up crossing paths with a young woman named Yuru, who is much more ambitious, studious, and has her eyes kind of set on this marriage with another powerful family in their hometown. And now the young man catches her, after a couple of interactions between the two of them, he actually catches her talking crap about him behind his back. And so he knows that she wants this important marriage. He knows how important it is to her. He also doesn't like that she's talking crap behind his back to the woman he's supposed to be engaged to. So there's a little bit of like animosity. So he decides that he is going to sabotage her engagement. And how he decides to do that is by openly confessing his love to her in front of an entire shop. They were in the middle of a shop, and he basically just openly confesses his love to her. And it's a big joke, and he knows that she hates him, and she's turning red in the face, and he just thinks the whole thing's a big laugh. Well, unbeknownst to him, his parents had a spy in his midst. And they report back that the woman he's engaged to, he doesn't really love. He actually loves Yuru. And his parents move heaven and earth to change the arrangement and marry these two kids together who can't stand each other. And obviously from there, it just kind of all goes haywire. And that's where we talk about unexpected relationships, because these two do not like each other at the beginning of this drama.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about what we liked of this drama. Well, I actually really like dramas that have like slow burns. I like a romance and a relationship to build slowly, because I think that's how relationships are built in real life. So I don't really believe in like love at first sight, and I don't, things like that, or it's just because like everything based off of like attraction, lust, sex, like those things, like yes, love can develop later, but I love these like really getting to know each other's personalities and then realizing there's more to a person than like the surface things, So I really like dramas where you kind of dig and discover each trait of a character. So I really like how their relationship developed. And the romance, it just like when the romance starts happening, I feel like it gives you like that, because you were like anticipating it. So then when it's paid off, it just feels so much more satisfying than like that first, like immediate attraction. Instead of getting into each other's faces right from the beginning, and then they're like about to kiss at every turn. Like those things to me are a little cheap. So I love how they did it in this drama, where it was very like slow, and they liked each other for their, personalities and their strengths, before any type of like physical.
Yeah, I think they did a good job of picking their moments in this one, where they didn't oversaturate it with those, almost kisses or, incidental face-to-faces, and then they pull away. They didn't give us so much of that where you start to groan about it, So I did appreciate that. It did start out a little slowly for me, and I think my biggest issue in the front half, which I knew they were going to correct, because I knew that they were doing it so that they could give both of these characters a really big arc, but I found them both to be a little annoying in the early episodes. Like, I found him to be kind of just a loser, and he's kind of that stereotypical, like, rich kid. I mean, he's just like, I don't want to watch rich kids gamble. Like, he's so annoying. He's got no ambition. You've been given every opportunity, and you have no interest in learning the family business. And on the other side, she's such a goody two-shoes And I'm like, you have no personality. Your whole personality is, I've got to be the perfect wife for this man I'm going to marry. And then, but I know that they're going to go with this big character arc. So like, I didn't hate it for it, but I was like, oh, how long do we have to sit through this part?
Yeah, so I do understand that, and I see it. And actually, when this drama was airing, a lot of international fans, they didn't like Song Yi's character, Yuru, because they felt like she was boring. It almost came off as like she's a bad actress because her character was so studious and so, like, controlled. And that was her character. Like, her character was like, I have to be, like, perfect in these, like, you know, powerful and wealthy families. Like, I have to be like almost a block of wood, or like clay, where she can just mold and be whatever, you know, those families want her to be. Especially her goal, her family goal.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they were the kind of family that was like, they're like the lowest on the totem pole of the like elites. So I feel like she has a little bit of an imposter syndrome from her family being like, they don't really belong there. Like, and I think that might even be part why she didn't like him so much at the beginning, is that, oh man, if I was at your status, I could just screw around all day too, but I can't. I can't afford a mistake. I can't afford a lapse, because they could just easily cast me aside. I'm nobody.
Yeah, and so the thing was, there was a big difference because Chinese fans who know Song Yi as an actress, she was in Joy of Life, and she was in My Heroic Husband. She's known as a good actress. And so the Chinese fans, and also who read the original novel of this drama was based off of, know that what she's doing is she's playing the character perfectly, because she has to be almost like a vase, you know. She has to be pretty, but not like, you know, with no personality, is kind of how she's supposed to be. So I understand, like, it kind of seemed like she was too goody two shoes and boring. And he was also playing his character really well, because he was playing like a rich kid, spoiled brat, you know, does what he wants, doesn't care about any consequences. The thing is, I wouldn't call him not ambitious. His ambition was to be able to live freely and also travel in the martial arts world and be like a martial arts hero, you know, like someone to save damsel in distresses, you know, like.
But he wasn't working very hard at that either. Like, he was training with his trainer, but like, he wasn't really like the other shows we've talked about, like The Blood of Youth. Like, that kid goes out into the world and starts trekking around and like, okay, let me make a name for myself. He wasn't really that focused on it. Like, that's what he said he wanted to do, but he wasn't really doing much to do it. No, I get the acting thing, because it's something that's really frustrating when you start a new show, when you start working on a new show and you're trying to develop characters, and the performances come in, and a lot of times you'll get notes, and they can come from a variety of places, and they're like, oh, they're playing it so sad, and you're like, yes, because the actor has to leave themselves somewhere to go. And so when an actor breaks down a character, they look at, where does this character start and where do they end? So if at the end, just in the simplest terms, they're supposed to be very happy, they have to peel that happiness away at the beginning so that the audience can understand the character arc. And so, like, that's where I appreciated the beginning. I totally knew what they were doing. I understood that she was going to have to be the uptight priss in order for her to be able to loosen her shoulders, so that when she did loosen her shoulders, you would notice. And he had to be the, I don't care about anything, I'm just cool, so that when he took responsibility, you would notice. You knew that was a turn. And it's a tricky thing for an actor, because they're just like, oh, I just wish he would play this way. It's like, I know, that's what he's going to get to. But you can't get there in the first episode or second episode of a show, especially when you're doing 40 plus episodes or whatever. Like, you have to let yourself go somewhere, otherwise there's no arc. And then the notes you get is, we're just not really feeling the character arc. Like, yes, that is true.
Yeah. So, I personally think that the acting was Amazing. I am a huge fan of Bai Jingting. Bai Jingting is one of my favorite Chinese male actors because the first thing I ever watched him in was My Ordinary Glory, and that is a remake of a Korean drama called Misang. He's like this dejected, timid, like guy somehow gets a chance to intern at a company and is totally in over his head because he's super underqualified for that position. And so then the next thing he's like this sleazy, like he sells like health like supplements to like retired old seniors that live in like a nursery home, and he infiltrates the nursery home so he can sell these like basically like scam these old people out of their money. Like his level of acting is amazing. Like every time he's like a chameleon. Like every time I see him in a different role, he's just that role. You don't see him as anything else other than that role, you know? So like he's such an amazing actor. Where Song Yi I'm not that familiar with because the previous dramas that I mentioned I actually didn't watch. So this is my first drama that I ever watched her in, but I was very satisfied with her acting.
I think both of them did run the gamut. They played the characters out the way that the script and the story needed it to play out. I feel like he's a very different character. If you watched episode 1 and then watch episode 30 or whatever, watch one near like the last 5 or 10, his acting is so different because he's a different human being as a character. And some shows don't evolve in that way, and I think this one did. And they really went through the ringer, you know, by themselves and then together as a unit. So it was so strong in that way. And so I do forgive the beginning for being a little slow for me, and I don't really care about those characters, but I knew they had to go somewhere with it. It's kind of a lot of people when they first read, and this is years ago, I'm dating myself, when they first read or saw Harry Potter, and there's like, Harry's so whiny, he's such a whiner. And it's like, I know he has to have somewhere to go. He can't start out being the hero because she's writing 7 books. So you kind of have to give the characters a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. Hopefully you can find something along the way you like about them while they are the character that they're not fully developed yet, so they're not just annoying, because that's not very watchable either. Mm-hmm. So you can find something to grasp onto. But yeah, you have to let these people have somewhere to go, and I thought they did a great job. I thought one of the strengths is the character arc. Like, these 2 characters have a bigger arc than most dramas we've watched.
That's true. Very true.
Like, they are very different people from the beginning to the end. They've gone through a ton of stuff, and they came out the other side very different places. Not many shows can do it. It's hard to just really, we're starting with these characters and we're going to evolve them.
Yeah, and with their, like, I love how their characters, like, what their characters do for each other. Like, whereas, like, she was helping him, like, study and, like, bringing, like, that responsibility out of him, and him, like, learning to really want it rather than, like, being forced to do it. And then him to, like, letting her know that, because her thing that she always says is, but I'm just a woman, right? And that was, like, she was, like, that was, like, embedded in her brain, you know, like, oh, you're just a woman, the best you can do is marry up, right? And then here he's like, you don't need to do that, you don't have to be like that, you should have ambitions, you should have interests, you should have hobbies, you should have, like, you know, a personality of your own. So then she kind of breaks through that shell that she had created for herself, and she bound herself into all these rules and regulations, and now she can throw all that out the window and be what she really wants to be and learn to, you know, be what she wants to be. And he's right there next to her, like, just encouraging her and supporting her, and always like, if you want to do that, I'm on your side. And there was never, like, a moment where they, like, distrusted each other.
No, I think I really like, you put it really well, what they did for each other, because I think his main flaw was kind of, he didn't really believe in himself. He didn't really believe that he was good enough to run the family business or be anything but, you know, a martial artist that could kind of like, well, if I'm a martial artist, it's just me out there in the world and I, you know, fending for myself. But having the responsibility of like running the family or having people look to him for answers, like really scared the crap out of him. And she gave him the confidence to go like, no, you're not an idiot. You know, she would give a little bit of a nudge of an idea and then he would be like, take it and run with it or whatever. And I thought it was really strong. And he kind of says it a little bit to get back at her because she's like really pushing him to study. And he says something like, you don't have to just like worry about me studying. Like, why are you so focused on who I am and what I do on the daily basis? Like, find something else, find something for you. And she's like, oh, okay, I will. And then he's like, oh wait, you will? And then, but he helps her grow and she helps him grow in such interesting ways, I think, that neither of them really expected. I don't think she went into that relationship expecting to run the family business.
Yeah. So also one of my most favorite things between them is, and this starts really early and you don't even really notice it because it's quite subtle, especially in the beginning, is that they have their like nightly talks. So whatever they do in the beginning, you know, and like how they go through their day, and then any kind of worry or concerns they have at night when they're about to go to bed and they're laying, and it starts off like she's in the bed and he's on the floor and they're just talking and they're just like vetting things out. And it's like what best friends would normally do is like they just sit there and they talk things out and they like have all their, like they lay everything out on the table and they like work everything out together. And it's just this really strong connection. And it's like, I think what I really like is that it feels like they start off as friends first and then the love builds. And that's where you like learn to trust each other because every night they're telling you everything that's going on through their day and they work everything out together. And it's just like, you know, that they support each other, you know, and they give each other ideas. And, you know, later when Josie is like, you know, working things out and mapping things out for her and like giving her solutions and things like that. It's just like, it's so strong and it's such like a quirky little relationship moment that a lot of times people don't even notice it because you're like, oh, they're just working the problem out. But it's like, it's such like a great romance build, character build, love build, friendship build, everything. It's just, it's so strong.
I thought the choice to do it before bed, like in the most intimate time for a couple, like we always said on shows that I've worked on, like you have to kind of find like what's the sex of your show that's not actually having sex. And so on some shows, like solving the crime is the sex, or like the computer lab, you know, two people typing on a computer, you know, hacking together, like, oh, that's the sex of our show. Or building a bomb together was the sex of one of the shows I worked on. And in this one, it really felt like the sex of the show were these nighttime, intimate moments between the two of them, because it's husband and wife in their bedroom working through all of their fears and hopes and dreams and insecurities and all that stuff. And even, like you say, they start physically far apart. They physically are not even in the same bed. And as the series progresses, they get physically and physically closer in each of those scenes. So if you watch it from beginning to end, you can actually see this couple become intimately involved with each other, to where they're sitting up next to him, putting his head on her shoulder, or vice versa, like that kind of stuff. But it started from a place of like being there for each other. And even before they even liked each other in the show, really, they're there for each other, because he can't help but to offer the piece of advice, and she can't help but to offer the piece of advice, or whatever. Or even if it's just, oh, why don't you just shut up and just do what you're supposed to do already? Well, maybe I will now. So I thought it was very smart, like picking the bedtime, picking that time that easily could just be making out. It's like, no, this is the intimate time between a couple. It's your time at the end of the day when no one else gets to intrude. So I thought that was really smart. And then just the physical distance, closing that over the course of the show. Really well done.
Yeah, I know a lot of fans were very frustrated because it took them a long time to, like, first of all have their first kiss, and second of all to have sex. And like for me, like that's not the most important thing in the relationship. It's like them actually loving each other is the most important thing. So it was really nice for me to see that, like, that build, and then when it actually happened, it was just like, oh, okay, like that. It's just like a cute little cherry on top, you know?
I think so many fans are looking for this instant gratification where it's like, we live in a world where 60-second videos, it's like what grabs your attention. You're like, oh, like making out, naked bodies, tits and ass. Like, just, I want to see it. And then you see it. But when you're watching a show, it just doesn't mean anything anymore. Like, if they were to hook up in the first episode, then again, where do they go? Like,
Yeah.
what do they do after that? And so it's just this instant gratification where you're like, oh, I just want them to kiss and make out and be happy. And you're like, yeah, but there's 30 more episodes. And we're developing a story here. We're not trying to push that part of your brain that's instant gratification, instant gratification. Like, we're trying to build something stronger so that when it does happen, just like you said, you go, oh, I'm so glad it happened now. And it's a different pleasure center of your brain.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Can I talk about the other dynamic? My second favorite dynamic in the whole show is between Gisela and his manservant. Like that to me was, I mean, I don't know, almost my favorite dynamic of the whole show, because this guy is like true blue servant / best friend. He does what he's supposed to do. He's definitely like takes care of this guy, and he has to cover for him. He has to lie for him. But then he also like smart talks him back and is a smart ass. And there's several times where he's just like, you want to do that? He's like, aren't you supposed to agree with me? He's like, yeah, of course. Yes, whatever you say is right. And then this main character has to kind of go, all right, well, because it wasn't, he's his confidant. He's his confidant, his henchman, his number 2 in battle, his,
Yeah.
his liar, his coverer, his best friend. Like, I loved their dynamic. And I thought both actors really played off each other's chemistry really well. I thought they were really well cast, but also just, I bet those scenes were really fun to shoot between those two.
Yeah. I didn't watch any behind the scenes, but now I kind of want to go and search for the behind the scenes, especially between those two. But I know you like that dynamic, but I kind of really like, story-wise, I like these dramas where, they start out as either rivals. So Jiusi is like, in the beginning, he's kind of jealous, Ye Shi'an, and because Ye Shi'an is like, top scholar, he's smart, he works. Yuru is like, plotting to marry him kind of thing, right? Everyone talks like compliments and praises and whatever, and then Jiusi is like the rich kid brat that everyone's like running away from. So he has that jealousy, but then slowly, like, they build this like trust within each other. They are confidants, they work together, they're friends, and I really like that. And I love those ones where it's like, just because you're rivals, just because you didn't get, start off on the right foot, doesn't mean you have to be enemies forever. And it doesn't ever mean like, oh, this person is gonna backstab me because we once had a scuffle kind of thing. And I like these relationships are really strong for me. I also think like these like ultimate evil people that are always evil and will never change and has no logic whatsoever are like just such badly written characters.
One-dimensional. I mean, that's what we call them, right? They're one note, and they play their note over and over again. And that doesn't feel like any human you've ever met in your life.
Yeah. Because no one really, like, yeah, someone will sabotage you, but, like, if it doesn't work in their favor, they're gonna stop. It's not like they're gonna do it over and over and over again until, like, they ruin their own lives. It's just silly.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense most of the time.
Yeah.
I thought those two were pretty good, and I also liked they both didn't really like each other in the way that, he's like, homeboy, you took my wife. Like, I was supposed to marry her, and then you swooped in with this practical joke, or whatever it was. And now he's watching the woman he was supposed to marry be with the lead of the show, So he also had, and they were both kind of just at odds. But again, when like the shit hit the fan outside of them, they both realized like, no, we're on the same side. Like there's a force moving in that is trying to tear our world apart. And rather than just be petty, and rather than not going to there's one person in the world that can help me solve this problem, but no, I don't like him. You know, like they actually turned to each other, and then they became people that all of them could trust each other.
Yeah. They became a support group.
It also kind of works throughout the whole show that the two of them together, the main two characters together, bring other people into their circle. Like when they're together, they can kind of bridge the gaps between rivals. Like even when they turn the bandit has like kidnapped her, and he's just like, I'm gonna marry you for myself, or I'm gonna kill you, one of those two. And then she kind of wins him over, and then the guy kind of comes in and finishes the job to win him over, and now he's on their side. And so they do that kind of several times throughout the show with wherever they go. People who kind of start out like the guys he works with when he's kind of the constable character, like they hate him, and then he slowly starts to win them over, and she does some impulsive things and like gets revenge for him against his coworkers when they beat him up, and like it shows her being able to be impulsive and not always the most logical, prim and proper. Like, so you touch my man, I'm gonna beat your ass now, and she hires these thugs to beat his boss up. And but sooner or later all these characters kind of come back to them. And they're like, oh, wait, there's something about you guys that they're leaders, even though I don't know if either of them decidedly wanted to be leaders at the beginning. She wanted to follow her husband that she was going to marry. He wanted to just kind of do his own thing. And by the end of the show, everyone's looking to them for the answers. And they have to come up with them. And they're trusting them to figure it out one way or another. And the other thing I would say is they're doing it together, and then they're also doing it independently of each other a lot in the show, where she's off doing one thing and he's off doing another, and he kind of tells her, like, whatever decision you make is going to be the right one. Just go with your gut and get it done. And then she has a few crossroads where she's like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? I can't second guess myself. I'm the one here. I can't guess what he would want, but I'm going to do this. And since he trusts me, he's going to do his thing, and it's all going to work out.
Yeah. So I think, like, character dynamic wise, it's so strong that it kind of overpowers a lot of, like, plot things.
Right. Yeah, I think some of the plotting, again, I think the plotting in the show is a little slow. And the bad guys are a little arch. We can talk about this more when we talk about things we didn't really love about it. But I do think the character dynamics really did hold the show together. And honestly, I think you hit the nail on the head with the kind of nighttime chats were the glue that held the show together. Like, for one, it's a cheap and easy way, we've talked about it before, of how do you get the exposition out? How do you keep the audience informed about what's going on? And they found this great little way to keep the audience informed so they wouldn't get lost, and you know what's going on, and you know what they want, and you know what the bad guys want and how they want to stop them. But it doesn't feel like someone just spouting exposition, because they were able to do it as this kind of couple.
Yeah, it's character building. So, like, you get lost in the exposition as they cover it up as character building.
Yeah, the best exposition is disguised as something else.
Yeah.
It's disguised as anger or love or hatred or something. Which is why we always make fun of bad guy speeches, because they're just coming out of nowhere, right? They're just like, and now I must tell you my plan so that the audience can feel satisfied. But it's not coming out, it's not disguised as anything. Whereas this, I thought the exposition, having those chats, having those check-ins, we would call them State of the Unions in the room, where you just kind of like, what's the state of the union for the show, so that everyone's on the same page, and that when you're watching the other scenes, you go, you know why they're doing what they're doing. But it's not so explicitly cheesy where you just groan and go, oh, now we gotta sit for a 4-minute speech while someone tells us what's going on and catches up. Let me tell you what's really happening. Ugh, come on.
Yeah.
So before we jump into what we didn't like about the show, I wanted to talk a little bit about a specific TV trope. Because a lot of people ask, how do you make your characters likable? How do you make your characters relatable? And there are a lot of little tricks, and this show does one trick. I mean, they do a lot of them, but there's one I kind of want to focus on because I think it's a trick that needs to die. or at least needs to be updated into current times. And all forms of TV and film use this trope, and it's one that drives me a little nuts. So one way to make a character likable, there's this really weird psychological thing that I had read, that if you see a character, especially a male, carrying a child, instantly the audience goes, "Aw." And so you'll see in a lot of shows, you'll notice it now. You'll watch a show and you'll see they'll start a scene with a male, picking up a child and carrying him to the playground, or carrying him in from outside. And it's like, "Oh, little Timmy hurt his knee," or whatever. And you're like, instinctively people go, "Oh, look, he cares about a child. He must be a good guy." And it's just this, subtle thing that we don't even really know that is happening, but it does help. Same thing with like puppies. It's like, "Oh, give a puppy for a gift and you're a good guy." Unless there's ominous music playing. But anyway. The same thing for bad guys. Like you see these scenes where someone has the smile on their face and they're talking to your lead character, and then the second the lead turns around, their face changes to stone and they get that glassy look in their eye, and they're two-faced. It's like instantly, oh, bad guy. Oh, two-faced person is a bad guy. So these small tricks you can kind of use. Well, one of the tricks that was used in this revolves around Yuru's mother and the second wife of her dad, and how evil the second wife is, and conniving, and at every turn is trying to undermine Yuru and her family, and how she keeps forgiving her.
Super easily.
So easily, and she keeps giving her second chances. And so, like, the audience knows this woman is a conniving bitch, and the main characters know she's a conniving bitch, yet they give her chance upon chance and save her life and let her come along when they escape the slaughter that's happening.
Well, like, they give her a chance to fuck them over again.
Over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it makes the character likable. Like, we all want to be that person that just says, I always say this, I'm like, "Chop her head off! Behead her now! I want to get rid of this character." But that wouldn't be a good guy character trait. That wouldn't be a good person. Like, if she actually did chop her head off, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's probably not a good person." A good person forgives and lets bygones be bygones, and, maybe gives her a stern talking to and a wag of the finger, but ultimately forgives the person and lets that person continue in the show. And it makes them a good person. It's a little trick in the way you make one person the good guy in the scenario and one person the bad guy, except for, unfortunately, it makes the good guy a dumb good guy, because you are just keeping someone around who wants to murder you in the back, and at every chance will turn on you, and then you're just going to keep them around until they turn on you so badly you can finally get rid of them. It's the only way the story can go.
Yeah. Okay, so I think the most satisfying revenge for me, this is totally off subject, but it's just, like, I remember when I was watching 10 Miles of Peach Blossoms, and this royal bitch does everything horrible to the lead character, and, like, to the point where at one point she takes her eyes for herself. Right? And this is in, like, heavenly realms, so, like, a lot of things happen, and then the girl had lost her memory, so she doesn't know who she really is. So then she had been bullied by this royal bitch, like, over and over and over again, as she's, like, married into the heavenly realm, right? Gets her eyes taken, goes back to she jumps off this, like, I don't know, this platform, and it kind of leads her into the mortal realm, but she's naturally, like, a fox demon, or fox spirit, and so, she gets her memories back, but she forgets the part that, when she married into the heavenly realm, and she doesn't realize why her eyesight is so bad, because, her eyes were taken from her. And so then the minute she remembers, and she goes back, and she's like, "Bitch, I'm fucking strong. I'm the only one that can save the world. So you have to bow down to me." And she takes her eyes back. I was screaming with satisfaction. And yet I'm still like, she's a good person.
But that's what I'm saying. It's a great trick, because ultimately the revenge will come.
Yeah.
And ultimately you'll earn that turn. But so many of the time, and especially in this drama, they keep this woman around for so long. It's like, oh, I'm just keeping you around waiting for you to screw me worse. So it's unforgivable.
Yeah. Well, the thing
Holy smokes.
The thing in this is Yuru's revenge is like not strong enough. You don't feel satisfied when she finally gets rid of the second mom.
No, she's like banished or whatever, and then her like dumb daughters get to stay, right? Like that's.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, kick them all out. They're horrible. Feed them to the wolves. I don't know. Do something.
Wait, she gets arrested or something and then sentenced to death? I don't remember.
I don't think so. The only scene I remember is when they're basically like, you're no longer welcome here. Like, your daughters and your son can stay, but you're no longer welcome. Goodbye. And I thought they just kicked her out, basically. But I don't. Either way, it wasn't memorable enough to be satisfying. But it's just one of those tropes that the stars have to align, because I'm not saying that bad guys can't do bad things and that good guys can't, get back at them. I'm saying when the character knows there's a fox in the hen house and they keep letting the fox in the hen house, even though the fox keeps eating the chickens, and all they do is go, stop eating the chickens. I know you're eating the chickens. And you're like, yes. How about not let the fox in the fucking hen house anymore? Like, why are you keeping these people in positions to ruin your life? Change the dynamic. But they wait so long. I mean, in this one, it's like her mother almost dies because they're trying to save the woman. They're letting this woman and her kids be saved after she has done nothing but try to sabotage their whole family over and over and over again. She's ratted them out. She's done everything you can do to destroy the family. And they're like, oh, please let us come with. Okay, you can come with. I'll leave you with my mother and hope that my mother doesn't die. Like, of course your mother's gonna die. I mean, luckily she doesn't. She survives falling off a cliff. I don't know how. Anyway, that's just my gripes.
Did she fall? She just...
Yeah, she like slid off the cliff side and then down the side and somehow
and then
lived.
Ye Shi An saves her.
Yeah, somebody.
Finds her, something like that.
Yeah.
The guy that she wanted to marry originally.
But if they wouldn't have let this woman hang around, they wouldn't have this problem.
So I have the top 3 things that I hate the most about this drama. And don't get me wrong, I love this drama, but there are 3 things that bother me like so badly. So I'm going to start with like the first thing is that I think that that scene where Jose's dad dies, I feel like we needed to see that.
I did not understand how they shot that. I don't know why they did it.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if like the actor himself like had a really like tight schedule and he had to like be away and like swept away and couldn't finish his death scene. But it was like, it's the most like dramatic part where like Joseph loses his dad, and it's like very like it's like supposed to be a really strong scene. And also ultimately Zishang wants to kill their family because of the dad, and to see like his death, or to not see his death and his death be off screen, is very like anticlimactic. It just,
well, even just practically, the only reason I could think that they didn't want to show it was that he didn't really die. And so both of us were sitting there going, the dad's not dead, right? He's going to come back. Like, because the mom falls off a cliff and she comes back. And, you're seeing these characters that died on screen. So you're like, well, those died. But the way the dad's death happened, I was like, so he's not dead, right? They wouldn't kill the dad off like that.
Yeah, it makes no sense to not show the death, because literally he could have been killed on the spot where they had already like filmed, the area where like, oh, the dad kind of pushes Joseph to go away, and then he gets stabbed or he gets killed. Like, it's very, like, everything was already shot there. To add, like, another just him, dying wouldn't have been that much more to shoot in that. And then, and then it was, like, so weird where, like, the other guy's like, I found him hidden in this area, and here's his jade or whatever it was that was on his body. It just felt so, like, really? That's it? And I was like, there's no way. Like, there's gonna be another scene where, like, Zishang is, like, torturing him or something. All that stuff, like, you know, trying to get, like, to the bottom of his mom being betrayed, could have made his character stronger rather than him always having those, like, flashbacks of him and Yuru. Like, those I felt like were really weak for his character. So it just felt really weird that, like, the dad wasn't in it more. And, you know, because ultimately, like, Zishang thought that, you know, him and Josu are, like, stepbrothers. You would think that he would interrogate his supposed dad, you know, more if they would, like, they would show those scenes. But, like, even if they don't do those scenes, they don't have enough time to shoot it, you know, maybe the actor's schedule is really tight and he doesn't have time to be in it, they could still add that scene where he dies. He gets killed.
You know what I wonder? Just because that scene was massive, right? It was a huge, probably one of the biggest action sequences in the whole show. Do you think that they decided to kill him off screen so that the actor literally wasn't in the background of the biggest scene? Like, you were able to shoot the rest of that scene now without that actor, like, slumped against the wall or being beaten up. Like, a lot of times we'll shoot action sequences and you're like, wait, we need the 7 dead bodies of the guards all laying there through this monologue now because we've just had this huge fight scene. And so just practically, it's the difference of the actor having to be there for a few hours versus maybe, like, 3 days of, like, well, no, he has to be there because his body would be laying there. And then if his body was laying there, Josu should be looking at his dad's dead body and fighting for his dad's dead body, so we need shots of his dead body laying there. I don't know if that was it, but it was such an odd choice given how important the father was to both of those characters, the good guy and the bad guy.
Yeah.
That it was almost mind-boggling. It felt like a mistake, like a literal, they forgot to do something. And I couldn't wrap my head around it. I stood there looking at the screen like, what?
Or they shot the death scene and it was really bad or something, and then they had to scrap it.
Or they did want to shoot interrogations or something, and maybe they even shot interrogations and then decided we don't have room for it, or we don't like what these scenes amounted to, and so let's just, in the edit, kill him off screen earlier so he doesn't get interrogated.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyways, I think it hurt the story. It didn't really hurt the story, but it definitely hurt, like, character moments for Josu, for Zishang, like...
Yeah, I think it was just a very big, like, kind of something that hung over the drama after that. Because there were several dramatic moments where I'm like, this is where the dad comes back, or this is where we reveal the dad's not dead, and, like, then they didn't happen, and then I'm like, oh, okay, so he is just dead. Like, it was a little weird.
Yeah. So that was one of my top 3 issues that I had with the drama.
What was number 2?
So number 2 for me is when Fan Yu, who is the son of, like, the governor of that town, first of all starts out like, oh, Josu's my bro, like, I'll go through thick and thin for him, and I'll punish those guards, because they bullied my bro, kind of thing. And then all of a sudden turning on him so easily at the end, and he, like, becomes such, like, a snivelly, dumbass, basically. And so I get so mad at those characters, and quite frankly, I don't know if he's a popular actor or not. I don't really know who he is, the actor, but, like, I thought his acting was really bad and super over the top. But you know, he was easily manipulated, which I understand his character is, like, really kind of dumb anyway, but, like, I hate those, you know, like, ally turned to, you know, evil character.
Well, without, like, a great reason either. Like, it felt like one conversation would have cleared everything up. Except for he had the bad guy in his ear whispering, oh, he's like this and he wants this and you're going to get pushed out. And he never once just goes to the main character and be like, hey man, can we talk?
Yeah.
Like, we were bros at the beginning of the show, and maybe now that, like, there's this other guy in the mix and he's like, I don't know, he's feeding me some stuff. Like, I just need to hear it from your mouth. He not once does it. He, like, listens from the shadows and he misunderstands things and he hears half conversations and then he gets mad at his dad's praise and it's like, or lack of praise for himself. And it's just all so petty.
Yeah.
That then him turning and then just being an unwitting pawn and, like, at the end, like, he does kind of realize he's a pawn at one point,
yeah.
right? But you almost want to go, no shit, dude. Of course you're a pawn. What were you going to be?
Yeah. It was just so silly for his character to, like, turn so easily and be used. And it's just, like, I felt like they could have done better in the writing. And I don't know if it was just, like, it's the end and they don't really know how to end it.
It felt like the most cartoony part of the whole thing. Like, that whole... It made the bad guy start to feel a little cartoony. And it made the kid feel a little cartoony. And, like, you never really... I never really thought they'd win.
Yeah.
Like, with that. Like, it just felt so pointless.
I felt Zishang as, like, the villain felt really weak. Like, I don't think he was a very strong, like, villain character. Like, he spent most of his time pining for Yuru anyway, and it just felt like they were like, oh, he's so smart and he's bested them like so many times and all of that, but I'm just like, did he really do that much? It kind of didn't feel like it. Like, he was just kind of a guy that, like, sat around and waited for stuff to happen and then maybe said a few things and then things would kind of go his way. Like, I don't know, like, he just didn't feel like a strong villain to me.
I think it's a problem when you have your main villain's superpower be pulling strings, where he doesn't physically do much in the show. He just has other people that he manipulates to do his dirty work for him. So then what that amounts to is him sitting having tea a lot.
Yeah.
And I think villains like that are very hard to craft because at some point you do want to see your villain get their hands dirty. You want to see that you don't want to hear about them being smart anymore. You want to see them be smart. And the only thing smart they're doing is kind of manipulating really dumb people.
Yeah. And this is also maybe, like, the same ordeal with, like, Blood of Youth. Is that, same actor, in Blood of Youth as Wu Xing, he was barely in the drama. You know, like, he would show up here and there, and but even in Blood of Youth, he had more of a role, I feel like. And then in Destined, he's, like, also just kind of showing up every so often. And I feel like it's because the actor is very popular. He has other roles where he's the main lead and not, like, a villain or a side character. And so, like, in this one, he's just, like, since it was directed by the same director as well, he's just, like, making his cameo, really. And so his existence wasn't really there.
Yeah, he doesn't have a presence. I mean, he does for some of it, but it does feel like that presence kind of comes and goes, and they have to talk about him a lot off screen. You know, or they're talking about him on screen, but he's off screen. So it didn't feel like he was necessarily the best avenue to be a real antagonist, because I mean he's a shithead for sure, but from scene to scene, it just didn't feel like it had any impact. What he was doing, and I do it. The string pulling thing's hard, but it's done well, but here it really wasn't.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my second thing that I hated the most. And then this is, like, top number one worst thing ever, and I hate it so much.
Oh wait, the next one is the worst of the worst. This is the worst thing they did.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
it's Yuru having to fake her own death, which, like, faking your own death happens a lot in these costume dramas. Like, you could probably, like, 98% of these costume dramas, someone fakes their own death, or, like, kind of dies but doesn't really die and they come back. And this did it, like, the mom dies and then comes back, and then, you know, and then Yuru having to, like, faking her own death is, like, so dumb. It was, like, with 6 episodes left till the end. Was it 6 or 12?
No, I think it was between 6 and 10, I think, episodes. It was at least 6 episodes before the end.
Yeah, and so, like, also, like, she dies, in quotes, dies. And it's like, no one in your audience is like, oh, I'm gonna believe that. Like, yeah, there's 6 more episodes to go, but she dies. Like, no one's gonna believe that.
Yeah, we're gonna kill off the female lead of basically a two-hander show. Like, the show is about those two.
Yeah.
Like, they have a support group, but this is not an ensemble show. This is a two-hander show. It's him and her. We're gonna kill off the female lead with 6 episodes left to go. Who on earth was fooled by that?
Yeah.
And the problem is they played it as if it was really happening. They didn't let the audience know, hey, this is a fake death and we're tricking the bad guys. They played it for the drama of her dying. And I can't imagine there was even a single audience member that watched it that went, oh no, she's dead, and I believe all these tears everyone's crying.
Yeah. And that's the thing also, everyone's crying, right? And it's just these, like, every single character ever introduced in the drama is, like, crying for her death, right? And it's these really long, drawn out crying scenes, right? And it's just like, wow, what a way to, like, drag your show on. And it was just so, like, who are you fooling? You're not fooling anybody. And with these fake tears, because, I mean, it's not fake for the characters, I guess, because they were fooled into believing that she was dead, but it was just so dumb as a show. Like, it was written terribly.
No, I mean, I think, have we talked about schmuck bait before on this?
Yes.
We have talked about schmuck bait. This was an ultimate schmuck bait because you're hiding the ball from the audience, and then you're hiding the ball from the main character, and then you're making us watch a lot of scenes of people really mourning her death. Like you say, it dragged on for so long. Even the bad guy gets a scene where he's crying about her.
Yeah.
So you're going to give everybody a scene about her death, and then say, just kidding.
Yeah.
Which just pulls out the rug. The other reason that I don't have a hard time or a problem with the mom's quote-unquote fake death is that it doesn't affect the plot of the show. It's not something that the entire show is built upon. Like, if the mom would have died over the cliff, it doesn't change the show all that much. She's really sad, her mom's dead. But it's not a tent pole holding up the drama of the show, like her death, fake death, at the end of it. And it just, yeah, I was like, I almost wanted to stop watching it. I was like, maybe we should just turn this off because it's such a stupid turn and it makes everyone stupid. And the plan is stupid. Like, honestly, here's the plan. I'm going to fake my own death so that my husband isn't arrested or can go free. By the way that they got him arrested was so stupid. He literally, like, was arrested and then gets out from under it and then immediately, like, is forced into a situation where he's arrested again. Like, it's so dumb.
Yeah.
Like, the execution of that was stupid. Like, all they knew was like, well, we got to get him arrested because we're going to do this really cool fake death thing. But it was stupid. And so the plan is, let's fake her death, and then she can just lay low for a while, and then come back later, and then everyone will just forget about the whole thing. Like, oh yeah, the reason she died was that he could go free. So then when she shows up later, everyone's not like, wait a minute, but she died so he could go free. So she's not dead. Isn't that fraud? And he has to go back to jail? I don't understand how this was a solution.
So the thing was, like, what normally would happen is she would have to assume her identity.
A new identity.
which she does, but then like once they reunite, she's like, okay, I'm back to who I am. No, you don't get to do that. You have to be the other person forever. You like, he will have to like remarry and marry you again, but like your other identity. Like you can't just be that person again.
You don't just get to go home.
Yeah.
You don't get to like, all right, let's go home. Let's have you watered my plants while I've been away? No, you're dead, bitch. Everyone thinks you're dead.
Yeah.
You have to stay dead. That's the whole point of faking your own death. You know, it just doesn't get to blow over.
So I think we have a fix in terms of, yeah, you can fake your own death, but like, let Jiusi know, you know, like, and so then the scene when everyone's crying and she's like, her body is in the coffin, rather than everyone crying and like, and it's just this drawn out thing where, you know, everyone's crying and like looking over her coffin and dead body. It's like more like Jiusi is worried that everyone's gonna find out that she isn't dead and she's laying in there, and he's worried she's gonna breathe all of a sudden, or like do a little move or whatever. So it rather than having like this fake sadness, it turn it into a suspense scene.
Yeah, I mean, there's no drama in what we saw because I don't think the audience believed it. And so there's no drama other than just sadness. And I think if they would have built it to, we have to fake her death and everyone has to buy it. And that means that the bad guy and the emperor, they're going to want to see her body.
Well, the emperor's part of it.
Yeah, the emperor. You're right.
Old
you're
lady.
Right. But whatever, the wife, the old queen.
Yeah, the
previous emperor queen. Like, we have to pass this off as a dead body to the point where like we need to like stick the coffin into the fire and like have it burn, but then we have to do a switcheroo or something that can give the audience of like, man, something could go wrong. And you know, you have the bad guy going to the coffin and Joseph's like, oh no, she's sweating. Like he can see beads of sweat on her brow, and it's like, dead people don't sweat. Is the bad guy going to notice? And then he's crying too much so he doesn't notice. And he's like, oh, I must have dripped a tear on her. You know what I mean? Like, whatever it is. Just give us something that makes us worry that the good guys might not succeed.
Yeah.
But instead, they hid the ball on the plan to the audience. And so we don't even know what the plan really is. And then we're like, oh, right, so she faked his own death. So now has the punishment. Like, she died, so she gets the punishment. He gets to go free. Oh, she's made this grand sacrifice. Surprise. Not surprise. She's still alive and doing just fine and dandy.
And also, like, she was given, like, a mission, you know, to, like, make money. I don't remember what her mission was.
I don't know.
She had to go to a different, like, basically she went to, like, town to town and made, like, a whole name for herself and became, like, this really successful merchant. And then she basically, like, gets a lot of money and helps with the war and helps Jiusi and all. Oh, no, Jiusi had to, that's right. Jiusi had to go and build this thing.
I don't remember.
Anyway, so...
It was convoluted. That's all I remember.
Yeah. Well, anyway, because for Jiusi's punishment, he had to go and, like, help with this build. I don't remember what the build was for.
It's
but
like a dam or something. Something like a dam or a bridge or a road or some public works bullshit.
Yeah, and so... and then like all these hiccups come along and they need money, and then basically she on the other side has been making all this money and donating the money to him, right, to do the work. And so like rather than like, oh, he doesn't know who she is, and then he doesn't know like all, you know, like they have, instead of that, like giving them that like knowledge of, we gotta go do what we gotta do. Like, we both have to separate for a while, and it's gonna suck for us, but we gotta go and, like, take responsibility. And then they take that burden on their shoulders of not being able to see each other. And then, you know, as grown-ups do, you know, and then she can go and, like, make a name for herself, and that's the mission she has. And then he has the mission of completing this public works thing, and they just have to like understand that they can't be with each other for a while and it's a long distance relationship, rather than I thought my wife died, and like 3 years goes by.
The thing I think they robbed us of was one last nighttime chat when he was in jail and she comes and visits him, and without saying the plan, she says the plan. Because there's like a guard watching and there's other inmates, and like they get this really intimate conversation between a husband and wife that feels like I'm going to take a poison and die tomorrow, but really is, if this plan works, let me rephrase that. If this plan doesn't work, we're dead. And if this plan works, I'm not going to see you for a very long time. And so this is our last chat. And that scene could lead into a, oh my God, she's dead. Maybe everyone but him is fooled. And he knows, and like the people who are carrying out the plan know, like, she's not really dead in that box. But here come the bad guys to inspect the body, or they want to throw it in the river themselves, and they have to pull some thing to like pull it off. And just by the nick of time, they pull her out of the water and she takes their breath, or whatever it is. Now we have sustained suspense through a sequence. And now you get what you just said of that, well, now we both have two parts of a plan, but we don't get to communicate with each other. And like, again, you could do cheesy shit, like she's writing letters to him, but she can't send them, so she just puts them in a box. Or he's doing that to her, but he's just putting them in a box, because here are the things I want to say to my wife. If we were having our nighttime chats, this is what I would say, but I can't say it. And then when they finally can come back together, he can hand her the box. And it's like, oh, I knew you were going to do that, or whatever. There's some cutesy shit that can happen.
Yeah.
And they robbed us of that completely by having 17 crying scenes in a row, followed by a montage, followed by, now she's fine.
Yeah.
Bad. Bad, bad, bad.
So that is my top number one most hated thing in this drama.
So let's talk about one just real quick before we're done that isn't really that big of a deal, but it just irked me a little bit, which was they kind of just use money to get out of their problems the whole show. They just kind of buy their way out of their problems all the time. This is twofold, because there's a second part of this, is that it seems like every dramatic hurdle in the show is quickly solved by them donating money to someone, which isn't very dramatic to me. Like, I don't care about rich people spending their money. And the other thing that is kind of goes hand in hand with this is the part of the drama where they should have been having the most hardships and like they get run out of their home and it's just the two of them by themselves and they're poor and they have nothing. They spend so little time in that section of the show, which I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting now. We're going to see them, a poor couple traveling, trying to get where they're supposed to be going, and it's going to be hard, and we're going to see episodes. This is going to be the whole middle of the show. And it was like kind of a montage until they get to their new home, and it's kind of like, here's our new home, slightly smaller and poorer, but like really not that different. Like, okay, and then we're just back to the same drama we've been watching. So I really thought there were some missed opportunities of showing those really hard times and how the two of them bonded even closer. Like, they did it, it's just, they just didn't give it any sort of time. And that was disappointing to me.
Yeah, I think since their strongest element of this drama is their relationship and the characters, they really should have given us more of the bonding time and like more character development and romantic development, rather than sticking with this weird evil plan that didn't work that well, like, with like all the manipulation and things like that, which were really weak, and either really vet it out and make it work or just give us more character, because that's the best part of the whole drama is characters, the interactions, the romance, the development. So
I just feel like they really had an opportunity to spend some time with the two of them by themselves, kind of on the road, making their way as best they can, having to like cross the border with like unsavory characters, just like, how do we get home? And then on the other side, you have, his mom who's like setting up a new shop, not knowing if her son and his wife are dead or alive. Like, did they make it out? Her family's dead. Her
Also,
husband's dead.
No, she didn't know her husband was dead yet.
That's
either.
right. She didn't know any of them were. So she has no idea what's going on the other side of this river, basically.
Yeah.
And she's waiting for word. And then, the dramatic irony part of that could be like, to make ends meet, they're selling off part of their fortune and then, banking on the fact that he's dead. And then he shows up. And it's like, oh, him actually showing up is now a complication because, she's made promises and things like this that now him being alive is a complication too. And they've been through the ringer. And so it's like, finally we're home. And you're like, oh no, you couldn't have come home at the worst time because it's chaos now because there's a war going on and we're actually enemies of the state and like all this stuff. So I feel like they could have really been a 3-part dynamic show where we saw them as this kind of rich family and then they lose everything and then we experience them having lost everything and then we get to see it rebuilt through their experiences. And it just kind of felt like we got 2 of those things and the middle part they just kind of waved their hands at and then she's making perfume.
Rouge,
whatever. It's wartime, let's mix some rouge.
Yeah. That was also kind of weird, but yeah.
I mean, ladies need to look good, but they can't even afford food. Like, the folks that are like, oh, our town is going to starve to death. I'll open a rouge shop. That was a weird move.
Yeah.
I let it go. I'm like, whatever. But it was a weird move.
Yeah. I mean, they tried to justify it.
They did. They threw some lines of dialogue at it, sure. Please, get the grain. Our people are going to starve if they don't have their grain. What about rouge? Do you have rouge? Do you have a rouge shop? Do you have one of those? No? Opportunity.
No, but there was already a rouge shop.
Oh, she ran him out of business.
Anyway, whatever it is.
Well.
She's a great business person.
So it's rankings time. What do you give this one?
I think it would be in a buffet line. Although there are quite a few things that I didn't really like about it. But I just think the acting is strong enough, the characters are strong enough, the romantic development is strong enough that I can it's like, waiting for my chance to get my plate and scooping the mashed potatoes on my plate, but yeah, in the buffet line, I'm Bai Jingting is my mashed potatoes.
Oh, jeez. There it is. There's the real. I think for me, this one gets a stepping out to get fresh air. And I think that's because the beginning, I found myself playing on my phone a lot, kind of ignoring it. The middle, I enjoyed, but I also just felt there was a huge missed opportunity with the middle of it, that I really wanted to see them through their struggles. Like, I knew it was coming because the previews kind of showed us them, walking through the desert, homeless. I wanted to see and experience that part, and I just didn't get to. And then from the fake your own death to the end, I was out. I was just like, I don't really care what happens, because it felt like we call it like downhill skiing, where there's just no more drama left. There's no more move for the bad guys to make. They've been outclassed, and the fake death kind of solved everything. And then it was just sort of like, all right, now let's watch 6 episodes and wait for them to win. And I just found the ending to be very anticlimactic. I think if the beginning was stronger, or they wouldn't have done the fake death. Honestly, if they just would have not done the fake death, this would be easily an 8 or a 9. But that really just put a bad taste in my mouth for the end. And honestly, like, I know endings are hard, but I feel so critical when just something is like, I'm starting to enjoy it, and then the end is just so unsatisfying. That's all I can think about.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
So now that we're done ranking, I think we have a little bit of a recommendation coming in the form of a book.
So yes, it is a book. It's a Chinese, I believe, a web novel. And it is called Those Years in Quest of Honor Mine by Man Man He Chi Do. It is a BL about this this young guy who was who fled to help raise this exiled prince, and after years of living an exiled life, he is actually welcomed back into the main city, and it's like one of those, it's like a palace drama, and he comes back, after years, and to make his way, his exiled prince and family weren't bullied and was able to survive being exiled. He kept dropping this marquis's name to basically survive and like sell off some things that like he had stolen from this marquis's home. And he's kind of let out these rumors that he once was this marquis's like lover, so they're very close. So then other like government officials in like the outskirts treated them well because they think that he has this marquis's backing. So when he goes back to the city, he runs into the Marquis again, and, things kind of, it keeps unraveling, like, their past, and, like, in flashbacks and them reminiscing, and the Marquis starts off, like, hating him because he fled from his home, because he originally was the Marquis's servant, but also before he was the servant, they actually were like study buddies. They studied together. So they did have a relationship and this love, and then throughout time they rekindle their love for each other. And it's actually like the characters are really well done. They have this good, they support each other, but like it's not said, it's done. So they keep like, they keep being in the background of each other's lives and doing little things to help each other, and they understand each other so much and know like how they are as people. So I think that is similar to how Jiusi and Yuru's relationship are with each other. So I wanted to recommend this.
Really cool. So check that out. It's available online. Is it an online novel?
Yes, it is online novel. You can get it if you can read Chinese. You can actually get the book, or you can go to. They have like, web comics drawn from this story. They have audio dramas for this story. But if you need an English translation online, there is Perpetual Dreams, which is where I read the translations from.
And so that wraps up this episode of the Drama Means podcast. We will be back next week with another episode where we will talk about the 2023 K-drama Miraculous Brothers. So join us then. Thank you so much for listening now, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, see you next week.